Uh, Welcome to another episode of the Common Man's Take on Sports with Kevin and
Quentin.
all right. All the conference championship games are over. We saw who won, so let's kind of unpack everything that's happened in the last 24 hours. So, um, the let's go over the final uh, rankings first. So, I'm just going to go through the whole list. So, the NCAA football playoff selection rankings are now final. And so we're just going to run through these and then we're going to talk about some of the results from this weekend. So Michigan finished at number one, Washington 2, Texas 3, Alabama 4, Florida State 5, Georgia 6, Ohio State 7, Oregon 8, Missouri 9, Penn State 10, Ole Miss 11, Oklahoma 12, LSU 13, Arizona 14, Louisville 15, Notre Dame 16, Iowa 17, North Carolina 18, Oregon State 19, Oklahoma State 20, Tennessee 21, Clemson 22, Liberty 23, SMU 24, and Kansas State 25. So, with that, we will go back, and so that now sets up the two semifinal games. So with Michigan number one and Alabama number four, that makes the Rose Bowl game for the first semifinal, Michigan versus Alabama. The second, the Sugar Bowl semifinal, is Texas versus Washington, 3-2. So let's talk about this for a few minutes and then we'll move on to some of the other bowl games. So I'm a little torn on this one because I know what the committee is going to say of why they left Florida State out, because Jordan Travis got hurt and I didn't feel like they were the same team. But at the same time and the same point that the Florida State players are going to make is that even without their quarterback, they still found ways to win. So, and they ended up winning their conference championship. And so, Florida State is the first undefeated conference champion to be left out of the playoff in its 10-year history or 9-year history. They're the first team to go undefeated, win their conference. Matter of fact, a Power 5 conference championship and be left out. They are the first. And so the reason why this happened was because Georgia lost to Alabama. And that opened up one slot. And so Michigan won, Washington won, and Florida State won. So you would naturally assume that Michigan, Washington, and Florida State all punched their ticket. And that's not what happened. So Georgia fell out of the top four, as they should have. If you wanted to stay in the playoff, then you should have got it done and won the SEC championship game. Since you didn't, you lost your seat. Now here is where the waters get a little murky. So since Georgia lost and dropped out, next team in line, because Washington beat Oregon, which dropped Oregon down, was Texas. Okay, one lost team that won their conference championship, got it. Texas is in because they're next in line. They were number 7. And with the loss of Oregon, that probably moves them up to number 6, which technically should have moved Ohio State up to number 5, but Texas got in. And that's fine. I'm okay with that because Texas beat Alabama head to head. They should be in with the loss of Georgia. However, where I take a little bit of time to consider, basically the committee just cheated Florida State because they did everything you're supposed to do and everything you're told to do. They actually won 2 games against 2 SEC teams this year. Yeah, that's right. They beat 2 of the SEC teams this year, won their conference. They beat Clemson. They beat Louisville. What else do you want them kids to do? And then you're going to leave them out? You're going to tell them you're not good enough? And here's my other thing. Yeah, Alabama beat Georgia in the conference championship, but that loss to Texas is still lingering with me. And so for me, that loss to Texas is worse than Ohio State's loss to Michigan. At least Ohio State's loss to Michigan, I would have felt better if they'd have just dropped Georgia to number 4 and let them stay in and move Texas up to number 3. I'd have been okay with that. Or move Texas up to number 3 and make Ohio State number 4. I would have been okay with that. But to allow Alabama to jump from number 8 to number 4, I'm just not buying it. I just don't think it's right. And I know that you're probably going to kick me for saying this, but I think Ohio State's better than Alabama and deserve to be in the playoff more than Alabama did. I don't care if they beat Georgia in the SEC championship or not. I still think that Texas loss at the beginning of the season, Texas, I don't even know, what was Texas ranked at the time? It's still a worse loss than Ohio State's loss to Michigan, who was the number 3 team in the country. And I think Ohio State's body of work is better than Alabama's.
Okay, so you're telling me that Ohio State team that has a...
Do you think Alabama deserved to jump from 8 to 4?
No, I don't. I really don't think that they did deserve that. I think Florida State should have, because Florida State's undefeated. They won 2 games without their QB. Well,
basically what you're telling me is
3 games without their QB.
Basically what you're telling me is they faced adversity and still found a way to win, and that still wasn't good enough. Interesting. Interesting call by the committee. I guess all this will be worked out next year because it's expanded to a 12-team playoff, so it's going to be relevant next year. But this was the first time the committee made a decision that kind of like took me back. I was like, wow. I guess it'll all sort itself out on January the 1st, because if Alabama skull drags Michigan across the field, I'll eat crow, because Alabama will prove that they're a top 4 team. But I just don't think they deserve to jump 4 spots like that, and I don't think they deserve to jump Ohio State or Florida State. I'm sorry, but I don't. That's just my opinion. Take it for what you will, but that's my opinion. Everything else I'm okay with. I'm okay with the Michigan, Washington, and Texas. Alabama is the one that I'm questioning the committee's decision on. That's the one that I don't think they got right. I just don't. I don't care what Paul Feinbaum says. He's an idiot and nobody cares what he says. Except for SEC fans who like to wave the SEC flag. So, what do you think?
This was just so the college football playoff could have an SEC team, and this was just, they just wanted an SEC team into the playoffs, and I think they wanted a harder opponent for Michigan to put Alabama at number 4, so Michigan have a harder opponent. Because Florida State, their offense isn't that good without Jordan Travis. And the committee just wanted, they just wanted Alabama to win the national title. They want an SEC team in. They want Bama to win the title. Or Texas, Washington. I just think they want Michigan to lose at this point because.
Well, I do want I hope Michigan skull drags Alabama, but we'll see what happens. I know Jim has not beat an SEC team. The only SEC team he beat was his first year as head coach at Michigan in the bowl game. It's the only bowl game he's won since he's been there. We'll see how it all shakes out. I think both games are going to be really good. I think Michigan Alabama match up well, and if this game goes the way that I think it will, I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to come down to the last possession. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. I think Washington and Texas will turn out the same. I think it's going to be a really good game. Both have high-scoring, high-flying offenses. So we'll see how that goes down. Let's go over some of the rest of the New Year's Six Bowl games. So on December the 29th, in the Cotton Bowl Classic, you have Ohio State in Missouri. I think Ohio State's going to send Missouri home with their tail between their legs. I think Ohio State's way better than Missouri. They will demolish them in that bowl game. Unless a bunch of Ohio State players sit out, but even then, I think their second and third stringers could probably beat Missouri starters. On the 30th, you have Penn State and Ole Miss. I think Penn State wins this game. I think Penn State's just a better team than Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is
defense
overrated,
yeah.
and I don't think they're really that good.
I think the defense is really the problem for Ole Miss. Their defense is terrible. That's how they lost. That's how they had a blowout loss to Georgia because their defense was just terrible. They were letting Georgia go down the field so quickly because of their defense, and their offense just cannot respond to just could not respond to Georgia, and it sometimes you cannot respond to teams. That's what's been the whole problem for Ole Miss this season. But I mean, this year is going to be a tough one. Oof. I mean, Penn State has a terrible offense.
Not really.
To me.
Penn State has a pretty good offense.
To me, I feel like when it comes to big games, like
I
Ohio
don't
State,
think
Michigan.
I don't think you're giving Penn State enough credit on their offense. They have a pretty good offense. They dropped 51 on Maryland. I'm pretty sure if you go back, they have one of the top offenses in the country if you look at the stats.
Okay.
While you're doing that,
okay. But when it comes to big games against
yeah, what are they ranked?
I don't know. I just see that they average 37.2 points per game.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I mean, but when it comes to big games like this,
I won't argue
their
with you there
defense-
because I know what you're about to say. James Franklin is not a big game coach, and you're correct. He is not a big game coach. He makes bad calls in big games.
I believe
Absolutely.
he's like 3-7 against Michigan.
Yes.
3-6. He has a losing record against Ohio State. I think his only win against Ohio State was 2016.
Yes.
I believe.
That is true off the blocked field goal, yes.
Yep.
So,
When it comes to those big games, he has losing records, and he's probably gonna have some trouble against Ole Miss. But I'll see if Penn State. But we'll see if Penn State can take advantage of Ole Miss's lack of defense. So I mean, Penn State's offense could get rolling because of Ole Miss's terrible defense. So yeah, I think Penn State can win this game. So
okay.
I really think that they
So the
can
next New
win.
Year's Six bowl game is Georgia at Florida State. I think Georgia wins this one. I think they win it fairly easily.
Yeah.
Next
I
is
agree
go
with
ahead.
you. I agree with you. I think Georgia wins this one. I know Georgia has had some trouble with injuries. You know, Ladd McConkey's been out. Brock Bowers has been out. for a little bit, but I just think that Georgia will still beat Florida State. But we'll see if Florida State.
Florida
They-
State
they
does
get
have a
deep-
tough defense.
Yeah, against the Gators in that second half, the defense was great. Against Louisville, their defense was great because their defense had 7 sacks in that game on Jack Plummer.
That is true.
That's some pretty good stats against the Louisville teams.
So the last New Year's Six game is Oregon and Liberty. I think Oregon wins this one easily. Oregon's a very good team. I don't think there's any question Oregon's going to win that game.
I think Oregon's gonna win this game. There's no question. Oregon's a really good football team. They have a pretty good defense. But when it comes to teams like Washington, Oregon's defense just isn't that good against Washington's high-powered offense. And I think that Oregon wins this one easily. It's gonna be an easy one for Oregon.
Okay. Let's scroll down the rest of the bowl games. These are just the kind of regular old bowl games. You're looking December 16th, Myrtle Beach Bowl, Georgia Southern at Ohio, Cricket Celebration Bowl, Howard at Florida A&M, Mercedes-Benz, R&L Carriers, New Orleans Bowls, Jacksonville State, Louisiana, Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl, Miami and Appalachian State, Mexico State, Fresno State, the New Mexico Bowl, LA Bowl is UCLA and Boise State, Radiance Technologies Independence Bowls, Cal and Texas Tech. December the 18th, you got the famous Toastery Bowl, Western Kentucky, No Dominion. December the 19th, you got Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl, UTSA versus Marshall. December the 21st, you have South Florida versus Syracuse and the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. December the 22nd, you got Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl, Georgia Tech and UCF. The 23rd, you got Birmingham Bowl, Troy versus Duke. You got the Camilla Bowl, Arkansas State versus Northern Illinois. Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, James Madden versus Air Force. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Georgia State, Utah State. 68 Ventures Bowl, South Alabama and Eastern Michigan. SRS Distribution, Las Vegas Bowl, Utah and Northwestern. Easy Point Hawaii Bowl, Coastal Carolina and San Jose State. The 26th, you have the Quick Lane Bowl, Bowling Green in Minnesota. You have Serve Pro, First Responder Bowl, Texas State and Rice. Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Kansas UNLV. December the 27th, you have the Military Bowl, Virginia Tech and Tulane. You have the Duke's Mayo Bowl, North Carolina at West Virginia. DirecTV Holiday Bowl, Louisville and USC. Texas Bowl, Texas A&M and Oklahoma State. On the 28th, you got Wasabi Fenway Bowl, SMU and Boston College. The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, Rutgers and Miami. Pop-Tarts Bowl, North Carolina State, Kansas State. Valero Alamo Bowl, Arizona and Oklahoma. That'd be a good one.
Yep.
Then December the 29th, you have the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, Clemson and Kentucky. That ought to be a pretty good one, but I think Clemson will win that one.
Yep.
Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, Oregon State and Notre Dame. AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Memphis and Iowa State. December the 30th, you got Strand's Perfect Music City Bowl, Auburn and Maryland. I'm actually going to pay attention to this one because Michigan struggled a little bit with Maryland in the regular season, and Alabama struggled with Auburn. In this bowl, I want to see if Maryland beats Auburn. That'll be interesting for me.
Okay.
That'll be interesting. You have the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl, to Universal's Wyoming. I think Maryland's better than Auburn. That's why I'm interested in this bowl. Then January the 1st, before you have your semifinals, you have the ReliQuest Bowl, which is Wisconsin and LSU. And then you have the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, which is Iowa and Tennessee. So those are all your bowl games. As we next couple weeks, we may do an in-depth analysis of some of these games and teams, just to see how it works out. But that's all your bowl games and your final college football rankings. I do want to look at one more thing though. So I gave you the final college football playoff, but I want to take a look at the AP poll. So just for some, so the final AP poll is exactly the way that I thought the college football playoff should be. The final AP poll had Michigan 1, Washington 2, Texas 3, and Florida State 4. Alabama 5, Georgia 6, Ohio State 7, Oregon 8, so on and so forth. So the AP poll is the way that I thought the college football playoff poll should be. And the coaches poll, the same. Michigan 1, Washington 2, and Florida State 3, Texas 4, Alabama 5, Georgia 6, and Ohio State 7, Oregon 8. Again, the way that I thought either order for Texas and Florida State, but I thought that's the way the college football playoff poll should be. So even the coaches and the Associated Press poll still had Florida State in the top 4, just not the playoff committee. Interesting. Very interesting. So what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's kind of weird because AP poll has Florida State in the top 4, and the coaches poll has Florida State in the top 4, but not the playoff committee. To be honest, that's kind of strange. AP poll and the coaches poll allows Florida State in that top 4, but not the playoff committee. That's kind of strange to me. I think that Florida State should be in the top 4, at least number 4. I really imagined it like how the coaches poll was number 1 Michigan, 2 Washington, 3 Florida State, and 4 Texas. That's how I imagine this to go. Exactly how I imagine. And I think that Florida State should at least be in the top 4 because of all that hard work that those players did, and you still don't think they did enough because at the start of the season they beat a number 5 LSU team.
Mm-hmm.
And they beat a number 14 Louisville team who has a pretty good offense.
Mm-hmm.
And you won't let them in the playoffs.
Yep.
And they also beat Duke, who was number 16 at that time. And you still won't let them in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Florida State beat LSU, Clemson, Duke, North Carolina, and Florida. So they got a pretty good body of work in Louisville. Louisville. So they got a pretty good body of work. I'm pretty sure Miami was ranked when they beat them.
No, Miami was unranked.
Were they?
Yep.
Anyway, that's my thoughts. It is what it is. Again, it'll all sort itself out when all these teams start playing. We'll see what happens. I want to pivot to the NBA here real quick. So the Orlando Magic's 9-game winning streak finally came to an end as they lost for the second time to the Brooklyn Nets. So they are now 14-6, which is still a very good record. Right behind Boston at 15-4.
Yep, and they're tied with Milwaukee for that second, in the Eastern Conference. But, I mean, they're only 1.5 games back from the Celtics, so still have a pretty good record. So
Yep.
they're still pretty good.
Still got Boston number 1, Orlando 2, Milwaukee 3. Well, really Milwaukee and Orlando are tied for 3, but Orlando owns the tiebreaker right now.
Yeah.
Philadelphia 4, New York 5, Indiana 6, Miami 7, Cleveland 8, Brooklyn 9, and Atlanta coming in at 10. Western Conference, Minnesota is still in the front at 15-4, which is tied with Boston for the best record in NBA, which is still pretty impressive for Minnesota. You have the Oklahoma City Thunder at number 2, Denver at 3, Sacramento at 4, Phoenix at 5, Dallas at 6, LA at 7, and 12-9. You have the Pelicans at 8, the Clippers at 9, and the Rockets at 10. So the NBA is starting to shape up a little bit. They're about 20 games in, a quarter of the way through the season, and some teams are starting to separate themselves a little bit. We'll keep an eye on that and see how those teams progress as the season goes along. We got a little NHL. So Boston is now number 1 in the Eastern Conference, they've been number 1, 16-4. You have the Florida Panthers now 14-8. Detroit Red Wings are 13-7. Maple Leafs are 12-6. You have New York Rangers at 18-4. So, in the Western Conference, you have the Colorado Avalanche number 1 at 15-6, which means they knocked the Golden Knights are 16-5, so they're still number 1. The Canucks are 16-8. The LA Kings are 13-4. Winnipeg Jets are 13-8, and Dallas Stars are 14-5. So they're about 20, a little more than 20 games in. It's starting to shape up a little there in the East and the West for hockey. You have the Maple Leafs, the Islanders, the Flyers, and the Lightning all in line for a wild card spot. In the West, you got the Coyotes, the Arizona Coyotes, St. Louis Blues, Calgary Flames, and the Nashville Predators all in line for a wild card slot. As of right now, we'll keep an eye on that, see how that shakes out in the next couple of weeks once we get to the halfway point. Is there anything else you want to cover for today's show? Anything else you want to talk about?
No, there's nothing else.
I will say, as a Michigan fan, it was very fulfilling for me to watch Michigan win the Big Ten championship and Mr. Tony Petitti to have to present that trophy to them. And I'm probably being petty here, but I see that he did not congratulate them. He just presented the trophy and walked off the stage, which is interesting. But I'm glad Michigan's still winning. I hope they continue to win. I'd like to see them win it all this year to shut all the haters up. But we'll see how that shakes out. We got about 3 weeks before we'll figure out what's going to happen there. But that's all I have for today. We thank you guys for listening. Remember, you can get our podcast anywhere you can access podcasts. Our podcast is on that platform. We also have a YouTube page. We did do our first video recording last week, and so now we're posting video recordings on YouTube as well. we thank you. We hope that you subscribe and follow us and continue to listen. We appreciate your support. You guys have a good day and enjoy the rest of your weekend.